Welcome to Connecting with Corinne, the podcast where I help you find your community one story and connection at a time. I'm your host, Corinne, and each week I explore inspiring conversations that connect us to the world around us, spark new ideas, and help build stronger, more meaningful connections. Whether it's through personal stories, thought-provoking discussions, or shared experiences, we're here to bring diverse perspectives to the table. So let's dive in and start. Welcome to another episode of Connecting with Corinne, and my guest today is the amazing Lisa Hillier. Hi, Lisa. How are you today?
Good. How are you? I'm excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm excited for you to be here. Thank you for coming. Lisa is the host of the Phoenix Rising podcast, and she's out on Vancouver Island now. No.
Sunshine Coast.
Oh, just the, okay. It
It's
all looks so
very different.
beautiful. It's just
It's
all
very
green
different.
and beautiful, and I'm jealous regardless.
Yeah, and I'm holding retreat out here in the summer, so it's on the Sunshine Coast.
Anyway, so I have known Lisa for quite a few years. I think we met when you were still in Calgary and I was living in Cochrane, and I think we met through the yoga circles. And I know you did some yoga teaching, and I went to a few of your classes, and I just loved your classes and how you held space for everyone. And then I know you moved out to BC. And I've been listening to your podcast. Like, I've been following you, and then all of a sudden you got on this podcast, and I've just been listening, and you've have a little bit of a transition in your life as well, going from yoga instructor, and you were this priestess and life coach, and now you've changed direction spiritually, which is amazing. And now you're holding prayer circles for people and, like you said, retreats. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, myself. Okay. Yeah, so I moved out to the Sunshine Coast a couple years ago now, and before I moved out here, I was teaching yoga, doing all the things, and I came out to the Sunshine Coast thinking I would be teaching yoga and doing all the things out here. And then I had my midlife crisis, or I think I was in the middle of my midlife crisis at that point. And I had always thought the midlife crises weren't real things. Like, I remember being a kid and just seeing like people go buy sports cars and whatever, have divorces, and they're a real thing. They're a real thing. And with that came a mental breakdown. And I was also going through early onset menopause and just like a huge collision of things. And that led me back to Christ. That's like a big story that we can untangle if you want, but that's kind of the overview. That led me back to Christ. Jesus was pursuing me. I had been Christian in my early 20s when I was an interior designer, and then I left the church because I was mad at God. And then I found salvation back in the church with Jesus because I was so sick. It, nothing else was saving me, so to speak. And yeah, so I returned to Christ, and then my whole world got turned upside down during the midlife crisis, a mental breakdown. And then it's always been like picking the pieces back up. But with that, I had been looking for a piece of land out here to hold retreats and just kind of live off the land, have a more homesteading lifestyle. And Jesus brought me my exact vision. It came true. So I live on this 5-acre piece of property. It's so magical. I know that homesteading gets romanticized out in the Instagram world. It is romantic, but it's a lot of work. And my life is many, 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 many things right now, but it's good.
That's good. I know because I follow you on Instagram. So with your homesteading, you have bees and you've got your ducks.
My bees died in the fall, but I will get new bees this spring. But yeah, the ducks actually are right behind me right now. I can
You can kind of see
hear
them.
them. I can hear them. You can see
I can
them.
see them.
They're so funny. They're
They're
so,
hilarious.
yeah, they're hilarious. So I have ducks right now. And
Yeah. And you sent me your bison balm, which is so good. We'll put all your links in the show notes at the end, but I do know your bison balm is amazing. The tallow, and I know you
yeah.
do beef tallow too, right?
Yeah, so I make tallow skincare products, face creams and body butters and soaps. So I tend markets here on the coast, and the Sunshine Coast is like one of the most magical places ever. It's just an hour and a half long coast, and it's like a bunch of small towns that kind of all connect. So it's a very small town feel with one highway running through it. So it's very slow. That's life out here.
So, how are you creating community now that you have found Christ?
Yeah, church. So I didn't really know anybody on the coast when I came out here. I knew one couple and then my ex-boyfriend. And so I found my whole community at church when I returned to Christ. So that all came together, and then we've just been holding just gatherings coming together. Church people really like hanging out with one another, and church is such a beautiful space to just be filled up with the Holy Spirit. I had done, I did so many things when I was in the New Age world, and I still wanted to do them, some of them. And I was like, but it doesn't align, and I don't even really care about that anymore. Don't care about that. It's not truth for me anymore. And so it was like, well, how do I do something that's similar but not the same? And so I started 40 days of prayer gatherings. And I did one leading up to Christmas. And it was so beautiful. There's definitely what's the word I'm looking for? A resurrection of the church right now. Like God is stirring something huge, a revival of the church. And so there's so many hearts turning towards Christ or coming back to Christ. I can even see it like in the global culture, so to speak. Russell Brand has found Christ, Joe Rogan, Doreen Virtue. So many people have returned to Christ. So I gathered these people for these 40 days, and it was just crazy the miracles that happened and the prayers and things happening like right away the next day and stuff. And it was so beautiful. And I don't think any of us wanted it to end. So I think I stopped it for a week or two, and then I'm like, I miss praying every night. Like we just hop on Zoom and pray for half an hour. And so we started again, and then we've gathered a bigger group for the 40 days from Ash Wednesday up to the resurrection. And it's so cool because the last time we did the 40 days, we're like, where are the men? Because there was only one guy, Ryan, in the group, and we were just praying for the men and praying for the men. And there's so many men in this next group. There's all these men that have come to church. God is really stirring something right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm finding that too. I'm finding that there is more people going back or exploring, right? Finding Jesus or God and looking at different things. And I know probably some of it also comes from people starting to go back to believing like flat earth theories and stuff like that. And not to say that there may be a bit of a connection. I just find it really interesting right now that there is this come from conspiracy theories. People are now going back to the church and to some of these other beliefs of the Bible. And so it's a very interesting time because I
Yeah.
think it's like that pendulum swinging. You move so far away, you go with the church, and then you move far away from it because you're like, no, it doesn't resonate. And now I feel like that pendulum's kind of swinging back to that other side. And then maybe eventually we'll find that middle ground, but I don't know. It's so hard to know.
Yeah.
So
And like there are flat earthers in my church. Church and flat earth is not connected. Some say that it's biblical about it being a flat earth, but it's the Bible's pretty metaphorical. So just not all Christians are flat earthers.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to imply that either. I just know a few people who have those kind of beliefs. And it's interesting because then now they're going into the exploratory of the Bible too. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean that's just how I've gotten that connection. I'm like, oh, that's just curious and interesting. But no, I'm not saying that all Christians are flat earthers at all. That's but I think it's just more people are going back and just trying to explore and being curious. So do you
Yeah.
mind talking a little bit about your journey of how you went from the new age? And I know you said you went through a little bit of a dark time, but you can go through that if you like or not, but where that aha moment came from to yoga to Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was in the new age world, I was constantly searching for things in the sense like it was like Akashic record readings all the time and dismantling signs all the time. Everything was a sign, like manifesting all the time. It was medicine ceremonies, rituals, all that kind of stuff. And it was all really beautiful. But it's funny because I did have this reading from Sarah Clark. And one of the things that came up that was going against me that wasn't in alignment was the priestess work that I was doing. And I'm like, that's my work. Like my whole life revolved around that. I held retreats, many retreats. I taught yoga. Although yoga, I had stopped teaching during the pandemic.
Mhm.
They wanted us to wear masks. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I had quite a few injuries. So yoga had dwindled off because of that. And then when I moved out here, just weird things started happening. I went to a concert with a friend and in the Roberts Creek Hall, and it's like tiny and cute, and all of a sudden it was this woman was like praising Jesus, and there was like Jesus music playing, and we're like, what kind of concert are we at here? And then I was like, I kind of miss worship music because I had been in church in my early 20s, and so I knew worship music. And so yeah, I was just kind of like, huh, it's kind of speaking to me. And I was dating a guy named Christian at that time. And there were all these like little nudges about Jesus. And even I was working with a breath coach healer at that time. And it was all about a masculine figure of God. And I was also working with a different coach. And see, this is the new age world. You have coach after coach after coach. And so I was trying to heal my relationship with men because I had gone through a pretty harsh breakup, one that stung more than any others that stung. And she was like, well, if you want to heal your relationship with men, you need to heal your relationship with God. And
Mhm.
so this was all kind of happening at the same time. And then it was like all these signs were coming in about Jesus. And I was learning tarot and reading tarot cards. And I lived in this marina in Secret Cove and on the coast here. And my neighbor, we were chatty sometimes, and I was like, oh, I'll read your tarot cards sometimes. And he just went off about how it was the devil,
Mhm.
basically. I was like, whoa, doesn't know he has a witch living next door, kind of thing, just laughing. And yeah, he went all down like Freemasons and all this stuff, and just about the truth of the things that are going on in the world. And I think that we all saw a different side to the world when COVID, we kind of, or I was like, things aren't exactly as we thought they were. And so anyway, that was kind of happening, but I was just living my life. So I was in Texas visiting my sister and everybody for Christmas, and I did a workshop that triggered trauma, basically, and sent me into a trauma response for 6 months. And so I was having mild panic attacks before that. And then after the workshop, everything was heightened to the point where I left my sister's. I said I couldn't stay there because I couldn't sleep because I was having nightmares. I just made up excuses, but really I was so afraid. Like, actually, I will speak to it because I think it's important because women really go through a storm when they're going through menopause. And I didn't know I was going through menopause. And your body gets so depleted of all of your hormones that you go into similar things like postpartum after you've had a baby. And a lot of people with postpartum where they're scared they'll hurt the baby. And so I went into a response where I was scared I would hurt one of my nephews, like that I would wake up in the middle of the night and hurt them, and that I would like sleepwalk. I've never sleptwalked in my life. Like it was to the point where I had suitcases all up my doors, like against the doors. So I couldn't leave my room in the middle of the night. But I got to the point where I was so panicked about it. It was like that station was turned up so loud. It was the only thing I heard. Like, what if you did? What if you hurt somebody? What if you did this? So I rented an Airbnb in Texas over Christmas, and my family was just like, what is going on? So that was kind of the gist of the mental breakdown, but that lasted 6 months. that was 6 months of torture. So I went to acupuncture. My sister kind of got me well enough so I could fly home. And then I came back to the coast and was basically on my own. And so it was like I left the coast. I think I went on like 11 road trips, a couple flights within 3 months because I was in fight or flight. So I was literally running away, but I was running away from myself because I was what I was scared of. Like it was just so, so crazy. But and I could see like the craziness of it, but I couldn't get out of it, and so I see people struggling with mental health, like even on the streets, and it's like, wow, it's real. It's so real. But what happened was when I was in Texas, that was another, Jesus is everywhere in Texas. There's drive-through prayer
Yeah.
and right next to drive-through daiquiris. And so when I was going through it and my family was kind of freaking out, my sister took me to church and I gave myself over to Jesus then because it was just something like I can't save myself. I can't. I don't know what's going on. I was kind of like, Lindsay, take me to a mental hospital. I'm not okay. And so then when I came back and I was on the coast by myself because I thought I was okay, because I'd had all this acupuncture and the inflammation in my body was down, but I wasn't. And so I was scared. So I went to church. And when I went up to get prayer at church, that was the other thing. So when I was at the concert earlier on in the fall, and the worship music was playing and it was all Jesus, my friend Steph had said, there's this church that everybody's going to on the coast. We should check it out sometime. And then we forgot about it. And so fast forward a couple months, I'm literally losing my mind. I was like, I wonder what that church was. Steph was gone. So I just Googled like community church in Davis Bay and just went on my own and walked in, and the people that I knew of were there. So I chose the right church. And it's just been such a beacon of light. But I went and got prayer and I said what was going on, like the fear of hurting myself, fear of hurting others. And she just asked questions. And of course, it came out that I was in the new age. And she was like, just started talking about it. You've opened yourself up to different things. And I had always been of the mind like that everything's good. And they talk about that in the new age world all the time. We're all one. I'd never really, that never really sat with me because I'm like, no, like I'm not the same as Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I'm not the same as Hitler, whoever, pick any person that you think is
Yeah.
evil. I'm not that. We're not one. And so it started becoming clear like there is evil on the planet, and that like scared me, but I was experiencing it within myself and it was like something had taken over. And I also struggled with alcohol. I've been sober almost 10 years now, and you can see when something has taken over a person that's under the influence of a substance. You can clearly see that that person's left the building and
Yeah.
something else has taken over. And I had weird experiences after India when I was in India and stuff. And so I was like, when she said this, you've opened yourself to other things, I was like, well, yeah, of course I did. I did plant medicine ceremonies,
Mm.
did magic all the time, all this stuff that I never thought anything of. And then I was like, that was working with spirits. And I don't know what I was playing with and that kind of stuff. So I did deliverance, which is basically like an exorcism in the church. Jesus did a lot of deliverance ministry. And it was like the church knit me back together with Jesus. And for myself, when I was in the New Age world, even practicing yoga, right? Like the different poses mean different things. And it's, well, I'm just practicing yoga. But a lot of the poses, you're worshiping different gods and
Mhm.
they're lesser gods. And when I was in India, there was wild things that happened. And there was this, I never can say this word properly, activity. I'm trying to say naiveness,
Mhm.
where I was just enthralled with it all because it is all very enchanting. There's something alluring about all of it, but I didn't fully know what I was playing with until I went off the deep end, like off the rails. And I have a friend, she went completely off the rails who did multiple ayahuasca ceremonies and iboga ceremonies. And it's just such a free for all. And you see things like Aubrey Marcus, I don't listen to him anymore, but all about these medicine ceremonies and da 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 da. And, his wife, Valana, I think is her name, doing music shows, but it's so satanic. Like when you open your eyes to it, there is so much satanic stuff around the world and it's creepy, but it's
Mhm.
also like, I don't want to be a part of any of that. I'm washing myself in the blood of Jesus. No. And yeah, so that kind of is what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry you went through that 6 months, but at the end of the day, I think you found lessons and you found some learnings from it, and which I think is amazing. And you came out stronger and you found your community from it too.
Well, I find like, yes. And yeah, I found Christ in it. That's the one blessing that I
Mhm.
can see from it because I do believe that we go through lessons on this planet, but there is a more gentle path. My path has not been gentle at all, but that's because I chose a path full of sin. And that was a word that I always struggled with was sin. But it's like, oh my gosh, like I have so sinned. And that was opening me up to other things as well. We even think of things like sex. It's so free love, like the sexual revolution and everything. When you are intimate with someone, you're taking on all of that person's stuff. They're good and they're demons, And so it's this spiritual entanglement. And I think of how that interacts with us on a spiritual level and how glorified casual sex is. I don't know if it still is, but I mean, our generation it was. I don't think it is anymore.
It depends on the circles.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. So yeah, yeah. So I just yes, a lot was learned and a lot came out of it, but I don't think it has to be that way. And that is why I've spoken out one about menopause from a health stance because I was also vegan for 6.5 years,
Mhm.
which vegan is terrible for your mental health, but it's also kind of glorified in the yoga world for sure.
Yeah.
But it's horrible for most people. I can't speak for everybody, but and also just the lifestyle that I was living. And so I see people living different lives and it's just so much more aligned and gentle.
Oh, that's beautiful. And with your 6 months, did you find that the church really helped you get out of that, what you went through? How did
Yeah.
you get out of it after
Yeah.
6 months?
Yes. I stayed in some woman from the church that I just met. I stayed in her basement. Um, one of the other ladies, and she's become a dear friend. They've all become dear friends, would call me every night and pray with me because I couldn't sleep. I had
Oh,
insomnia for 3 months, extreme insomnia. So the church, yeah, they held me through all of that. And I had my family and my good friends, and I had a lot of people. And I think that was another thing that we learned with COVID, like we heal through human connection. Even right now, I have two guys living upstairs just for the winter. We heal just being around other humans. We're not meant to be on our own. And so when I was going through that storm, it was like, yeah, I want to live somewhere where there's people always around me because we need that connection. So that's coming a lot. But yeah, my church held me through it. And now I attend church every Sunday. I have a church group, this prayer group, which just keeps us so connected. And it's really cool just to see the shifts that people are experiencing and their thirst being satiated in a sense. Because it was like I was always thirsty for more, 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 more in the new age world. And now it's like that's gone. I'm filled up, so to speak.
Yeah. Just kind of finding that peace and instead of chasing, you found.
Peace. Yeah, that's such a good word. There's peace where there was never, ever peace.
Oh, that's beautiful, Lisa. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then how did you get into the podcasting? What made you decide to go into the Phoenix Rising and podcasting? Because I know we talked a little bit off camera. I know it started, was it before you moved to BC or just as you had moved to BC?
Yeah, I started the podcast during COVID, and it was when the mandates were on and the unvaccinated couldn't participate in society. And so I couldn't participate in society. And so I was living in a tiny house out in DeWinton, outside of Calgary, and going through massive heartbreak. And it always been a thought, 5 years down the road, I'll start the podcast. But I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I knew I had a big community in Calgary around the world. And so I was like, I'll just have healers on and talk about healing and stories. And it actually became my medicine when I was really sick. I still did the podcast through all of that. That was why I started it, was because I couldn't do much else.
And it's beautiful because I love how it's called the Phoenix Rising podcast. So if anyone hasn't listened to it, it's beautiful. I do love the transition that you have done with it, going from where the healers. And I feel like it's been like subtle. Like it wasn't maybe for you going from the yoga world to finding Jesus, maybe not as subtle. And it was kind of that boom. But when you do the podcast, it's very subtle. And I know at one point when I was listening to some of your older episodes, it's this priestess, and now you don't talk about that anymore, which is fine. There's no judgment there. But I just find like that even with the guests have been so interesting of
Yeah.
subtleness of kind of shifting.
Well, it was settled. And because it would started like my guests were talking about Jesus, and I'm like, oh, didn't expect that. And so they were speaking to it. I hadn't even had the breakdown yet. I was kind of being pursued by Jesus, but I didn't know. And
Mhm.
so it was almost like he was pursuing me in that way too, where I would have never thought this person was Christian. So it did happen very subtly on the podcast, and I was kind of unsure of just coming out. I've given my life over to Jesus. I would say now I have fully come out on the podcast and on Instagram, but I was very nervous about it because, and I did get pushback about it because my whole persona, it's such a persona for everybody on Instagram, was like divine feminine, you're a goddess, power to the people, but like women rising. And then I started slowly seeing how that was creating not great dynamics in relationships with men, especially for myself, and just being open to what our true nature is as women. And so it was all kind of like slowly happening. And then there was this point where I was like, I'm not in alignment. I cringe at some of my posts that I've written. I'm just kind of like, who was she? She is gone. And I didn't necessarily want her to leave. I was happy at that phase of my life, but a lot was missing. But yeah, that girl has left the building. And I did get pushback. And so with the podcast, it was a slow transition. And at some point, people reach out and are like, can I be a guest on your podcast? If there's one speck of new age on your thing, no, I don't want to. Because in a sense, who you have on your podcast, you're amplifying that voice, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to amplify that anymore because I don't align with it. I was definitely a part of it. I was somewhat of a leader in that community in Calgary around it. I was on a podcast last week of a guy that has a podcast here, and we were speaking about it. I've spent probably close to $100,000 in retreats, in coaches, in trainings, da 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 da. None of
Mhm.
that mattered when I've had a mental breakdown. Not one speck of it mattered. Also, when I got into a relationship, everything else came to the surface. Everything I thought I had healed came to the surface. It's a great business model. You constantly need the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I know some of it helps. I know a lot of it helps. Like it helped me live better life in so many ways, but it also might have led to some of the things that was the worst experience of my life. And I've experienced some pretty horrible things. And that was the worst, you know? Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but
It does. I feel like we go through these transitions in our life, right? And you've had the church at one point in your 20s and then it didn't speak to you. And so you found other things and you're realizing that this wasn't, it's not meant for you right now. And so you're on this other path. And I think everyone, we all have these different journeys. And I think that's the most beautiful part of life. And, what we're going through, you can call it God or universe or whatever. And I think it's just so magical that we're learning from all of this.
right. Yeah.
And everyone's path is going to be different. And we are all different beings. Like I said, just to learn and to look back and be like, okay, that wasn't me. Because I mean, there's few things like when I got into kind of the new age stuff, I've never grown up Christian, but I did kind of dabble in Christianity when I was in high school. So I had gone to a couple different churches for my friends. I don't know if you've ever heard of Young Life, but Young Life was one of these Christian-based church groups, and they weren't affiliated with one church. They just wanted to spread the word of God and Jesus, and they would go into schools. And some people called it jokingly like a cult, but it was interesting and it was fun. And I had a lot of my friends involved, and that was what you wanted to create was this community. And then we would sing and we would do a little prayer and stuff like that. And it was amazing. But I think in high school and junior high, I really needed that. And then when I got into university and just starting to learn more, yeah, I had some friends who were Christian. They believed just in one God, and that never resonated with me. So I was just like, okay, I don't know. I don't know about this. And then I just stopped. And like yourself, when I lived in England, I went through a huge mental breakdown, and it wasn't as long as yours, but I did feel crazy. And it was like my quarter life crisis. So I can resonate with when you say the midlife, which I'm kind of going through now, but that quarter life crisis, I just felt crazy. And it was again like wanting to harm not others, but it was definitely could harm myself.
Mhm.
And it got to that point where it was dark and deep. And I went through this. I understand where you're coming from. Like you just feel crazy and you have these thoughts, and you're like, where is this even coming from? And for myself, it was very dark. There was a point where I was sleeping with a knife underneath my pillow. It wasn't like I wanted to kill myself. That was never the case. But for me, I just wanted to sleep. And if I could just sleep for 100 years and then wake up, and in your case, I couldn't run. So for me, it was like if I could just like pass out and not wake up for 100 years and then wake up again and be, I'm in a totally different time. Maybe this will be better. I don't know. I felt that. And for myself, I did go see a counselor and I was able to kind of get out of that. But yeah, I was going through a lot of different things. I wasn't eating well when I was living in England. I was drinking a lot, and it just got to that point where we had that breaking point, and I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired
Right.
of getting that help. We go through these transitions, and then it's like, okay, how do we learn from this and how do we grow? And for some people, it's finding God. For some people, it's just getting the help they need. And for some, it's other things.
Right. Yeah, and I will say because I was diagnosed with CPTSD and I did do somatic experiencing and that was super helpful. It was mind-blowing, just the experience of somatic experiencing. So that was very helpful for PTSD. And then I haven't done it yet, but EMDR is supposed to also be amazing for PTSD. So I did like go attack it at all angles, which I recommend for anybody if they're going through a dark time. You got to look at it spiritually.
Yeah.
And that's kind of missing from society. We've separated ourselves from the supernatural, but it's a huge part of it, you know.
It
So
is a big part of it. And to connect back to our body, right? Because that's really all somatic is it's just connecting back to our bodies. And we even went through COVID. So many people have had trauma from it. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily PTSD. It can be big trauma or little trauma. But I think when you go through either a physical trauma of hurting yourself or even emotional or mental trauma, to have that disconnect with your body. Myself, I'm grateful that I have had yoga in my life just because you can go back to that connection. of what does it feel like in my body to breathe, or what does it feel like to walk, or what does it feel like to just try to feel grounded,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? And I think that is a big thing because when we go through these periods of trauma, we disassociate and we can disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taught some trauma-informed yoga, and it's interesting because some people are like, I don't know my lefts from rights. And I always joke, I don't know my lefts and rights anyway, but you'll really see that. And I can see people who will be like, I don't know what I'm feeling.
Right.
I'm lifting up my hand and I can see I'm lifting up my hand, but I can't necessarily feel that.
Mm-hmm.
I love this somatic work because it is connecting back, taking those breaths, trying to regulate our nervous system, and just getting back into self.
Yeah. Yeah. And a somatic experiencing is just a different realm that lets your body do what it needs to do in a really beautiful
Mhm.
way. Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of people are kind of bridging over from yoga to now Christ, or do you find there's some people who can do both? Is that possible? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And there are Christians that practice yoga for sure. Because I think a lot of people just see yoga as a physical practice, which it is, and it's on some levels, and then it's also so much more on other levels. But the bridging of the two, there's kind of this movement in New Age about Christ consciousness. When I was a priestess, we worked with, I think it was 12, maybe it was probably 13 ascended masters, Christ being one of them. But the Bible is very clear that you're to have nobody else on the altar except God. And so I don't want anybody else on the altar except God. So when I think about bridging the two, I don't want to. It's not that I'm like depriving myself by not like worshiping Mary Magdalene anymore or Isis. Like, I don't want to. And I don't even pay attention to the moons anymore or astrology. Like, I just have no desire. So that desire went away. And that just happened naturally. And then people are, the Bible is the Bible truth. The Bible is really speaks about exactly what's happening on the planet right now. I have a friend that is super Christian. She's just like the walking light. You can just see Jesus in her. She just emanates his love. She returned to Christ. She was in the New Age because she was like, exactly what the Bible said is exactly what's happening. And I have had quite a few New Age friends say that, the left religion. And in New Age, it was always like, why isn't there one book that just tells you how to heal? You know, and it was, well, all our paths are so different, which they are. But the Bible is the one book that, I mean, the Bible's 66 books in one. So I just rather not bridge the two. I don't have the desire to. Can you? I don't know. But I don't, I fear enough what happened. Maybe that's not the right words. I experienced something that I never ever want to experience again. And
Mhm.
so I will close myself off to everything that could possibly invite that in, you know?
Yeah.
So I know some people do bridge the two. They're also a lot younger than me. Not that matters, but I do think that we need to go through certain archetypes, not that we do go through certain archetypes at certain stages in our lives. Maybe when they're 45, they'll be in a different place, you know? I was worshiping exactly what they're worshiping now, but they also led me to Christ, teachers of mine. So, yeah, TBD. I'm not going to find out. I'm good just with God and Jesus as my savior, you know?
I love it. And it's amazing. And I feel like you said, everyone's kind of got their own path and to see what's happening. But I can totally relate to you of not wanting to go back to where I was
Mhm.
because I've had it in the past where history repeats itself. And I've gone to a couple times in my life where I can see almost the signs and symptoms of the depression again, right? And it was hell on earth for the time that I went through it. And when I was going through it again at another point, I found yoga. That was how I found yoga was through my second depression. Someone said, you should try And I'd done yoga before, but it was and it's so funny because it's Bikram yoga of all the yogas that I ended up finding.
That's a hard one.
The hard one and the most controversial one out of them all was the one that helped me and helped me get out of a lot of the stuff that I was going through at the time. And it was just to sweat it out and just to cry. And I think it was more just that space, holding that space, right? And for me, it was the nice thing about that yoga was it was just the 26 poses and the two breathing exercises. And every time I go into that hot room, I knew exactly what to expect. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to surprise, we're going to do a down dog, or we're going to do up dogs, or it was just a variety of things. It was, we're doing this and this and this and this and this and this. I'm like, okay, I can handle that. My nervous system can handle that. And it helps so much. Just connecting,
Yeah.
like you said, back to the body and helping in that way. That being said, unfortunately, with everything else that happened, it was heartbreaking to kind of step away from and disconnect as a yoga instructor, but also as someone who really loved the practice.
Oh, because he was, yeah.
Yeah, just because of all the stuff he did. And I really had to step away from that. Yeah, I don't teach that practice. I'll sometimes go to a studio, but no one calls it Bikram anymore, right? Everyone's kind of stepped away from that. Even when I did my teacher training, it was funny because I don't know if you know Kim McMullen, but she had taught a bunch of hot yoga teachers. And so two of the trainings she did within one was to either teach a Baron Baptiste type hot vinyasa flow or to teach the Bikram style. And I chose Bikram style because it, at the time, like that was my favorite yoga. But when I was teaching it, it just didn't resonate with me. And I had a hard time teaching it because I'm like, I love this practice. Like, I love this yoga. I believe in it. But I felt inauthentic because I wasn't learning from Bikram at the time. And this was pre all the scandals that came out. But at the same time, there was something inauthentic about it. And I
Right.
really struggled, like, really struggled. And I ended up stepping away from teaching the 26 and 2. I ended up teaching more vinyasa stuff. Like I really struggled in my teacher training. And then
Mhm.
after that, I got into more of the yin yoga, which I fell in love with, and just some other practices and dragon's dance and just different things. And now when I teach, it's just functional yoga. And it's more of just how do we feel in our bodies? How are we standing? Because I get a lot of people who come to me and they say, oh, my back hurts and I hurt my back doing yoga. You should be hurting your back doing yoga. What are you doing? And like, oh, I'm just back bending. And then they just go into this weird back bend. I'm like, this is no. You are hurting yourself. Like, no wonder you're hurting yourself. So the way I teach is very functional. But that being said, it's just trying to get people back to their bodies,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's really my purpose of teaching yoga. And I hate to say it, I'm like the worst yoga instructor. I understand the 8 limbs of yoga. It never really resonated with me either. And I understand the yamas and niyamas and everything else, but for me, it was the only takeaway I really got from yoga was is the non-judgment and
Right.
practicing non-judgment and practicing being open to everyone and without judging. And that's why I love having this conversation with you, but also having conversations with my friends during COVID, because a few of them did get into the conspiracy theories and flat earth. And for me, it was just, I'm going to hold space and I'm just going to listen. And
Mm.
we can laugh and joke about stuff, but honestly, I don't care. I don't care if the world is round. I don't care if it's flat. Like, I just want people just to be good people.
Right.
And everyone's journey is going to be just so different, and that's okay. And do I believe in some of the more of the new age stuff? Absolutely. But I hear what you're saying with the healing because there's always that healing work going on. And it's what's the next thing? Is it astrology? Is it the Akashic records? Because I do Akashic records readings and I find them very, very fascinating. It is different. And I've seen things and I'm just like, I don't know.
Like my experience with the Akashic records, I will say first that yoga saved me as well from rock bottom. So that took me out of rock bottom in my early 30s. That yoga was the catalyst to me quitting drinking. So that was amazing. But what I noticed looking back with the Akashic records and the readings, it was ultimately keeping me from surrendering and being in the present moment because it was like, this is going to happen and this and all this like things that are potentials that could happen. Some of them happened, but a lot of them didn't happen. And it's like now I have no idea what's going to happen next week. I don't
Yeah.
care what's going to happen next week. This full surrender to this is my life. This is right now. This is today, as opposed to when am I going to meet the man of my dreams and all that kind of stuff. So that was my experience because I wanted answers so bad to
Mm,
life as opposed to just surrendering to life and to God
and
ultimately.
trusting the process.
Yeah. Yeah. That was what I recognized in myself after any hardship that would come. The first thing I'd get my healers on the phone, give me an Akashic Records session. What's going on? Instead of
What's
just
going on with the energies? It's so funny because with Akashic Records, like it's not really about the future. It's more about the past and it's more of what's coming up for me and what is it that, and this is just my experience with the Akashic Records and how I've learned how to read them. It's all about past stuff. So people say to me, in this lifetime, I've got this really irrational fear of flying, for example. And they said, I've always had good experiences flying. Why do I always feel this way? What was it in this lifetime? Was it a past lifetime? Is it generational trauma from something? And that's what I really like the Akashic Records for, is to unpack that stuff and to maybe help bring forth what has happened in a past lifetime or that energy that just has gotten stuck and has combined to this lifetime. So then it's just kind of unpacking that and trying to figure it out. But then again, it can bring up some things, right? It can bring up a little bit of trauma. It can bring up some of these emotions and feelings. So it is also bringing that awareness too of what you said, what we're working with and what we're playing with is, for me, I believe it's just energy. But at the end of the day, you just, is it good, bad? It's, for me, it's indifferent, but it's how we respond to it.
yeah, see,
And you might have different experiences and different beliefs on it too. And I think that's,
like when you've literally seen it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there is evil kind of thing. So
yeah,
your whole, can you hear that? Yeah, you had to have heard that ringing.
yeah.
When you've seen it and there is evil and yeah, it's like when all this stuff is getting channeled, who's it getting channeled from? Nobody knows. When you go to psychics, who are they channeling? They think it's good. Who knows? And
Hmm.
yeah, anyway.
No, I know. So it's interesting, but I love hearing your journey though. So let's go back into your retreats then. So what retreats are you offering over the summer?
Yes, so I have one in August,
Mhm.
a longer one. That's from the 8th till the 12th, and it's all about returning to your feminine nature. It's called Milk and Honey, and we'll do lots of fun stuff on the coast because there's tons of stuff. And it's all nature-based stuff. There's not tons of stuff here. But yeah, it's a gathering of women coming together, and I'm really passionate about women healing their relationship with men. And we see this war on the sexes that we've seen through our whole life, I would say. And so, how do we come into relationship with men in a beautiful, co creative way? And so, that'll be explored during the retreat. There will be some God stuff. You can put in whatever name you want for it as a masculine figure, because I think when we learn to come in relationship with God as masculine, as father, that ultimately is going to shift our relationship with the men in our lives, right? So yeah, it's 8th to the 12th. It's going to be a beautiful coming together gathering of sisters. I live on a 5-acre property that has probably 3 acres of it are forest. So there'll be tents, like safari tents in the forest, and there'll be a sauna and dips in the ocean and fires on the beach. So beautiful experience that way. And then we'll also come together in sisterhood and circle.
Oh, I love that. It's so funny because I've been thinking about that a lot of the masculine and the feminine. And I've talked about it in my podcast, but also in other people's podcasts of, again, the pendulum has swung in one way. And it's very much the women have been in these masculine roles. We have to be everything. We have to have that feminine, but then we also are now in the working world. And I think this is like my midlife crisis. I've been feeling it where it's like, I'm done chasing for work and for jobs and stuff. And I was in a relationship. I got separated and divorced. And after that, it's like, okay, I have to take care of myself, which is fine. But like trying to chase and trying to find the jobs and to make money. And my body and my soul is just like, I'm fucking done. I don't want a man to necessarily be my sugar daddy. That's not what I'm saying. But even in my relationships, like with my ex-husband, we were both working and it was still in that masculine role. And then I still had to be in that feminine role of taking care of the house and taking care of this. And I'd say, like, can you take the garbage out? And it would just be this poking, right? The gaslighting. I did it last week. Why can't you do it this week? I'm like, I'm just asking because are we going to play this game of who's doing what? What's happening? And for me, I need that relationship of somebody who is strong and into his masculine. And I know I listened to your podcast with, was it The Surrendered Wife?
Oh, the empowered wife, Laura Doyle.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just learning how to surrender.
Well, yeah, and how you communicate with men because they are very different, very,
Yeah.
very different than us. And when you nag or ask, it's not received well. But if you communicate your desires, like I would love the house, the kitchen. I just would love a clean kitchen. He will jump over fires to do that for you.
Mhm.
But if you're constantly like, can you clean the kitchen?
Yeah. Or take the garbage up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very fascinating because it's definitely not what we learned. I learned from my parents in that dynamic, and
Yeah.
it's very
No,
interesting.
I love it because I do feel like we are in this the like we have demasculized our men to some extent, When I look at my ex-husband, at the end, he was literally like a 10-year-old boy. He was acting like a 10-year-old self, and it just was not, it didn't work for us. And I just was like, you need to step up. And even when we were going through the emotional stuff, he literally had temper tantrums.
Yeah.
And it was like a 5-year-old where he would throw himself on the floor and have this like just release. And I'm like, okay. And I just stand back and I just watch and I'm just like, I I don't even know. I don't even know what to say to you. And I can't. I'm done. I'm so done.
Yeah.
Manifesting or praying or whatever you want to call it. It's just wanting a man just to step up and to be in his masculine.
But for that, you have to be fully in your feminine,
Yes.
and you might be.
I'm not there right now because I am feeling like I'm still trying to like I am single and trying to find work and get that money. So I still feel like I'm that fish going upstream at the moment. But I
Right.
feel like part of it is this podcast helps with the feminine of creating community and connection again.
Right. It's like, yeah, men respond to women. And so if our energy is like feminine, that will make him respond in different ways. But if it's very masculine, it's two masculines fighting for the same space. You know what I mean? So he
Yeah.
can't step into his true nature. So it's very
Hmm.
interesting.
It is very interesting. So it is learning that more feminine, but I am definitely into the home body and just embracing that side of me right now. It feels good, but at the same time, still there is still a part of me where I still have to do the masculine things at the moment and
Yeah.
which is hard, right? To fully embrace the feminine. But then it's like, how do I strive in this world alone at the moment while
Right.
trying to embrace the full femininity of it all?
Yeah. I mean, it's so nuanced, the whole masculine feminine dynamic, and even what's taught in the new age world, because it's There's so many layers to it. You can do things, but what energy are you in when you're doing it? You know what I mean? I chop wood. I have to chop wood all the time. When you still have to do things,
Yeah,
I think it's like our energy in doing it. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the energy and the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 So it's very interesting. So I'm excited for that gathering. I love like unpacking, just like learning so much about it. I love it. With this surrender to God, it's almost like I still pray for my husband to come because I would rather not build a duck house because I have to do that kind of stuff on the homestead here. But the almost forcing of it's gone, where it felt like I needed that so bad. I think especially during COVID, that really brought up in me like this fear I can't be on my own. I am a bit of a conspiracy theorist and the government's out to get us and I can't be on my own. And that's softened. And I think that's just because we've all softened a bit to COVID now. It's not so in our face. And yeah, yeah.
Well, you're doing amazing things. And where can people find you to book your retreat or to hear you?
There's a website for the retreat. So the website's the Forest Cabins, and then there's a retreat tab on that. I can share the link with you so you can put it in the show notes if you'd like. The Forest Cabins is the website for this property because it is a full-blown bed and breakfast during the tourist season here on the coast. I have long table events here, all kinds of events happening all the time. So that's where the retreat information is at the Forest Cabins. And hear me, where can they hear me?
Mhm.
Get the Phoenix Rising podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put
Oh,
that in. I'll link it to Spotify.
yeah.
And
One funny story about the podcast, when I started it, the name stems from my dad. That's why it's called Phoenix. But when I Googled Phoenix Rising podcast just to see what else was out there, they were all Christian podcasts. And that's when I first started, and I was like, well, mine's not going to be that. And then that's
it's
what it is now.
so funny. We go through these layers and changes in our life, and when something burns down, we rise from it. And
Yeah, and God has a sense of humor. So it's almost like he was showing me, he was like, you're not staying in that priestess role for much longer.
you're going into something else. But
Yeah.
I love it. And then where can people find out about like your long table events? Is that mostly through the church or?
No, that's not through the church. No, I just hold them for anybody on the Sunshine Coast. But that's on the website as well. And then Instagram, I'm Lisa __ Hillier. That's my main account. And then I have Rewilding Roses as like my Bison Beauty and long table events and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I will put that all in the show notes. So thank you so much. It was so good to talk to you and to have this conversation. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was lovely to connect with you and be a part of it.
Oh, well, thank you. And have a wonderful day. So I'll just say goodbye. Thanks, everyone. Stay connected, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope today's conversation sparked something new and reminded you of the power of connection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with others and continue spreading the message of unity across all walks of life. Until next time, stay connected.